What's up, this is David, and today I want to talk to you about what is leverage and how to sell high-ticket coaching with it, right? We're selling with leverage. So Naval Ravikant popularized the idea of using leverage to get rich, right? And if you haven't read or listened to any, Naval Ravikant's brilliance about leverage, then please go do that after you have watched this. I believe it's genius. So if you want to read the book, there's actually a book made about like his tweet storm, as he calls it, and it's called The Almanac of Naval Ravikant. And to listen, you can also just YouTube it. It's How to Get Rich Without Getting Lucky. It is mind-popping once you understand like what leverage is, right? So Naval Ravikant, he said, forget rich versus poor. It's now leverage versus unleveraged, especially in the digital world, okay? And he talks about the 4 levers in the modern world. And the first one is labor, and we're going to be going a little bit deeper into each of these. Second one is capital. Third is code, and number 4 is media. And I believe there are a few other leverages that we can use, but I'll be talking about that separately. So maybe something like skill is also a lever. And with skill, if you are really good at something, the output could be a lot more than the input. Like one input could be like 4 or 5 output, right? And there's also brand leverage. If somebody recognizes you, then you also get leverage with that. But let's stick with the 4 we've discussed, right? So the idea of leverage is pretty simple. It's like you're looking for asymmetrical outputs. So like input 1, output 2, output 3, right? It can be different ratios. It could be like 1 to 2, 1 to 10, 1 to 10,000, 1,000, whatever, right? So labor is the oldest form of leverage, okay? This is like the idea of using humans for leverage. So, I mean, I have like a picture here. So with this kind of leverage, the input to output ratio is usually 1 to 1. So it requires a lot of people, right? And so like the leverage is very low. Without any like tools, especially, it's normally like energy input of like 1 and output of like 1, right? And this is like considering all things equal. So considering like skill level like equal, okay? So if you have 2 equal humans, input 2, output 2. So it's basic math, right? And if you have like a high skilled human, the output can be more, but for this example's sake, let's keep it simple. So labor is the oldest form of leverage, and it may be the most inefficient form of leverage that we have in the modern world, right? So capital leverage. Capital, you pretty much are using your money, your wealth, to make more wealth, right? So like investments and like interest and stuff like that, right? So depending on the investment, like it could be like input 1, output 3, output 30, or whatever. Of course, the riskier the investment, the more output you can create, right? And there's usually a time element with capital as well. It's not like you can invest in a stock today and then it goes to like 30 tomorrow, or sometimes it can, but usually there's a time element to it, right? It's pretty simple. You have money working for you, right? And I have like a picture of that. So capital is like, has been around since money has been around, has been invented. So it's a newer form of leverage versus like, human leverage, human labor. Okay. So this is a newer form, and it's a more efficient form, in my opinion, using capital leverage. Okay. So code and media, this is probably the newest form of leverage. So in my opinion, code and media are the same because media is usually all just digital now, right? It's just digital code. So these two, I believe they're the same. And I just like to call it digital leverage, right? And I believe this is the best form of leverage that we have in the modern world because we have the internet to reach the globe pretty much. So AI and automations, they all fall under this category because it's just, digital code under the hood. It's just, like computer software, and we're kind of like utilizing that compute power, that energy power, right? And here's like a picture of like a cute anime picture of like, digital servers, right? So we're utilizing that. And digital leverage is beautiful because we have servers and the internet doing most of the work for us, right? So digital leverage can be defined as products that have no marginal cost for replication or reproduction. So for example, like it doesn't cost you any extras to produce another set of ebooks. Like whether it's like one ebook or like 10,000 or a million ebooks, besides like small like hosting fees, there's no extra cost, right? So that is what we mean by leverage, like nearly infinite leverage with this kind of a lever. So on this list, it has the highest ratio of potential input to output. So it can be like 1 to like, like a billion plus, or whoever has access to the internet, right? So input 1 and the output could be like the world population if they have, access to the internet, right? So the only limit I would say is your total addressable market that's online. So for your coaching business, your total addressable, your specific ideal target, okay, your ideal client. And unlike capital, by the way, there's like little risk. The risk that we're taking is like, we're risking like time and energy pretty much. But that's the same thing as like, human leverage. But then we're just getting more output. But we get more output versus just labor, right? And for a more advanced strategy, this could be like a different video for another day, but we can combine capital and digital leverage, right? So one example is using paid ads, which is using capital to fuel our digital leverage business, okay, which results in utilizing time leverage. This way, we are speeding things up with ads. So we are using time as our leverage now. We're speeding things up. So because ads speed things up. So instead of like waiting around for your organic to pick up, we're compressing potentially years into potentially months or potentially even weeks, okay? But that's another video for another day. So there are multiple ways to use digital leverage, and the sky's really the limit, right? And these are just some examples. There's much more, right? Content, you can use blogs or whatever, communication through emails, social, right? Marketing and sales, our personality and information. One of my favorite ways to use it, of course, is to create a digital-based business. Not only for financial freedom, but of course, we get location freedom and we get time freedom, right? Because it's leveraged, it requires little input for a lot of output. Okay, it is a lever. And it's the reason I got into digital marketing in the first place, to utilize this kind of leverage. I thought, oh, wait a minute, we can do this stuff online, and like people across the world, they can like buy this stuff. That's wow. And then like we can, set things up. So like we set it up once and then we don't have to like set it up again, or like, like I said, like no additional cost for reproduction, right? We can like sell one ebook or sell 10,000 ebooks and we'll keep getting paid. That was like a mind-blowing thing for me back in the day. And the best way to produce financial freedom, in my opinion, is to sell something online in exchange for knowledge or information, or for services such as digital sales, digital information, and digital services. And I actually like this part, services part, because when you provide a service, sometimes if your offer is perpetual, that can become a good recurring income instead of just like a one-time thing from like an ebook, for example. So when we use labor, we're using lower forms of leverage, right? But most of us, what we're doing, especially with like the whole sales team and the sales call thing, is like we're trying to like solve problems by just throwing humans onto it. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like you're putting on a band-aid without like addressing like the root cause of things. Okay. So before like adding things or like adding humans and team members, like just ask, like, can we remove things? Like, is it even necessary? Like, can we use digital systems for this? Because like they say in engineering, the best part is no part. And think about this, like the best sales is no sales. The best sales team is no sales team, because it just sells itself, right? And so, like SpaceX and the Raptor engines. So what they started out with was like a Raptor version 1, right? It was like this very like a complicated machine with like many different parts going everywhere. And then they evolved it to like Raptor version 2 and then Raptor version 3, and then they're working on 4 now and so on, right? And now it's like so much more simple and elegant because there's less parts. It wasn't about adding more, it was about reducing, right? And this engine is now nearly 2 times as powerful with way less parts, right? It got a lot more efficient. So we kind of have to see that with our business as well. It's like, how can we remove and make it more efficient and make more profits with it, right? And keep more of that profits for ourselves. And don't get me wrong, I love having a small team. Okay, like I definitely do. But the thing is, like, most of us try to like outsource everything, without asking the fundamental questions first. Like, do we even need this, right? Do we need a sales team, or can we do it another way in a more efficient manner? So doing the whole like sales team way, like it requires a lot of human labor. Not only like does it require a lot of like human labor, but it also, you lose profit. You lose a lot of profit, right? So for example, like you got to hire like a setter. This is especially if you want to scale like big, right? A closer one, and then like a sales manager. And again, these are all like lower forms of leverage, like human labor, right? Not only is it like a lower form of leverage, but they eat into your precious profit that you'll never get back. Okay. And the thing about like having a digital funnel where you're doing like email follow-ups in the back end, right? And doing it without a sales team, even though you might not get the sale right away, some of these people, they will eventually buy, right? And you'll keep all of that profit because it's just pure profit. But then with the sales team, you will lose that profit and you'll never get it back, right? You'll never get that profit back. So like a setter, for example, so let's go over some numbers, right? Maybe you'll pay them like a 5% commission. So that's 5% profit loss. Closer one, closer two, typical is like usually 15-20%, right? And then hiring a sales manager on top of that, they would expect some profit as well, profit percentage, commission, right? And it adds up. So it's like an instant 32% profit loss right then and there. And that's not accounting for like the other costs of doing business, right? Well, what if we just get rid of the entire thing? You know what I mean? What if we just get rid of this entire thing so that we keep all of that profit to ourselves, all right? And use a big digital leverage instead, lever instead, right? And I remember Sam Altman, he's, of course, you know him as an OpenAI guy. He was saying, like, in my little group chat with my tech CEO friends, like, there's a betting pool for the first year that there is a one-person billion-dollar company, okay? And which would have been unimaginable without AI, and now he believes it will happen. And I want to like replace AI with anything that's digital, like digital leverage, right? Because AI falls under digital leverage, right? For our coaching business model, I think 1 billion might be a little far-fetched, but I absolutely believe like 1 million, 2 million, and doing that recurringly, absolutely possible. Absolutely. So I've been in the marketing space since, like the early 2000s, is like when I was a little kid. And then I came back to it about 16 years ago, and I had many, I've run many digital businesses since then. And so I've seen many things, okay, in the digital business world. I've seen things come and go. I've seen what works and what works for like a really long time, right? So, and I've also bought things. I've bought many training programs. We went to many workshops and events and conferences. So I bought many things online for, several thousands of dollars. And I bought all of these without having to go on a sales call. Like, people buy things without having to go on sales calls. Isn't that a big epiphany? Like, we used to do things without having to rely on Zoom, all right? So in fact, this whole concept of like a high ticket closer, it wasn't even a thing back then. This was not even a thing. It didn't even exist. So until some like guru, they came along and they started selling us on like this idea of sales calls and doing sales calls with like a one-on-one, like getting on Zoom with the prospect, right? And because they were good at selling, like we got sold on this idea, me included, by the way, me included. So we started hiring sales teams, and because newer people to the space, if you came after this era, right? They've been presented with this idea, so they now believe that that is the only way to make sales. They have like very like tunnel vision. They think that in order to sell high ticket things, you have to do a one-to-one sales calls, which is not true. Again, like we've been selling things in multiple different ways online prior to the sales call thing, like way before sales calls, right? Without any thought that there is even another option, okay? Especially the newer people, right? And it comes to a point where we don't even question it anymore. We lose our critical thinking. Okay, so it's like the game of a game of telephone. Like, you know, when you have like a original message, but then they pass it along to another person and pass it along to another person. It gets from like one human to another, and then it's like out the other end is like a totally different message. Remember that game telephone? Or like that first person says it to another person, says it to another person, says it to another person, and the message is like completely different by the end, right? So like telephone game person number one might say like, hey, sales calls could be, you know, a great one way to sell out of hundreds of different ways to sell, right? And then they pass it along, and then like the second person says like, sales calls are the best way to sell, and then third person comes along and say like, sales teams are the best way to sell, and then maybe like the fourth person comes along and they're like, sales calls are the only way to sell high ticket. This is the only way to do it, right? So it gets lost. The message gets distorted. So let's ask this question, like, what is selling? Like, how does one make a buying decision? Like, really think about that from first principles and human psychology, especially for high ticket, right? Well, it comes down to a few things. So I just listed a few things here. So, like, the person that's buying, you want them to have all the information. Like, think about when you're buying something like expensive. Like, wouldn't you want to have like the full details of something that they're buying, right? So they need to have all the information to make a buying decision. And if it's like a coaching thing, they have to, you know, ideally like trust you, and they have to believe in your offer and your opportunity, and they have to believe that they'll get the results they want with you and your offer, right? And the thing is this, like, as long as we can achieve this, we can sell with practically any vehicle. It doesn't have to be over a Zoom call, right? And so, because we can achieve this with practically any vehicle, maybe we can use a leveraged vehicle versus an unleveraged vehicle, as Naval Ravikant said it, right? Using digital code, content, and leverage as our sales machine instead of relying on human labor. And even a simple Google Doc will work. And I've seen it happen many, many times, right? And the whole thing about like the Google Doc thing, I mean, of course, there's got to be some kind of context. Like if you have like a great outside marketing, the Google Docs will absolutely help. Sometimes though, you do need a little bit of more warming up, okay? But this is absolutely possible, right? You can sell high ticket with simple Google Doc offers. You just got to unlock the belief that you can. And yeah, of course, like hire a team if you want. Like I like having people around me, right? Just not as like a sales team. Okay. For other aspects of the business, we can hire humans, right? Like VAs, tech stuff, content manager, maybe like an assistant coach. But with sales, we don't necessarily have to hire additional humans. And don't get me wrong, I'm not against sales calls. Like I believe certain businesses, they might want to do sales calls, right? Certain ones, okay? But not all. And I definitely don't think coaching, you need sales calls to do it, okay? Because with sales, it's all about like delivering a result and a value, right? Like think about it. Like if you just deliver great results, show your personality, and then like, you know, actually like care for other people, like people will want to do business with you, okay? So that's the world I imagine, and that's the world, you know, we're building here at Freedom World, in a world that creates sales again and again with tons of leverage, right? So we're working smart. You know, we're working in a smart way so that we don't need additional human labor and no more low leverage stuff, no more paying salary or losing commission. And most importantly, you get that mental freedom back. So hiring like big teams and managing them, seeing like, hey, I wonder what the sales team is doing, or like, you know, sometimes they might complain and whine about your leads. Like they might be like, hey, the leads have been crap lately, David, come on, what's going on? So it creates another level of stress. And really, sometimes it feels like you become a slave to your sales team, really. It's like, dang, who's the master, who's the slave? Like, oh man, I feel like, I become a slave to the sales team because like I have to like keep them happy. You know what I mean? And because, I learned that even though you outsource it, it's still in the back of your mind, right? It's still in the back of your mind. It creates stress versus like something that's digital. It just runs, it just runs no matter what. And remember, it's not poor versus rich anymore. It's about leverage versus unleverage. And I believe using leverage is the new way forward and the new world that's going to be much more beautiful and much more efficient, elegant, and just like the Raptor engine model example, much more effective and much more profitable in my opinion. And that's the way forward. So I just want to plant that little seed in your mind, and I wish it can grow into a beautiful garden later on, my friend. So if you are an established high ticket coach, then you can also watch this video right now. I believe it is super sick, and I believe it will help you out in your high ticket coaching business. Talk to you soon.